Hi, I'm Thomas Gray and welcome to the demonstration of my Mclaren MP4. The model was created in Autodesk Maya and consists of 7 main parts. These are the front wing, the chassis, back wing, windshield, wheel nuts, wheels, and the brakes. To organize the development, parts were assigned to different layers. Physically accurate materials were assigned to the parts. AI car paint was used heavily for the car's body. Adjustments were made to the roughness and IOR of the materials to create a shinier, more reflective effect. AI standard surface was also used for some of the hardware in the brakes and wheel nuts. The brushed metal preset was used and adjusted to create a more realistic metal look. The glass preset was used for the windshield, with adjustments to the colour to make it a little less transparent. To light the model, an AI area light was used and placed directly over the car. Changes were made to the luminosity and exposure to get the right light effect on the car. Also changing the temperature of the light gave the scene a warmer feel. To make a scene for my model, I created an AI sky dome and attached a 360-degree HDRI photo. The platform on which the car is sat on uses an AI shadow matte material, which becomes invisible when rendered but still creates a shadow for the car. With the right camera angle, it creates the illusion that the car is there in the scene. The model was then moved from Maya to Unreal Engine 4. This was done by exporting each piece as an FBX file. The model was then reassembled in the new workspace. To give some context to my model, I imported a road texture and an image of some background scenery which I applied to a cube. This was then duplicated for the animation video. Materials were also transported through the FBX file, however when they arrived in Unreal, they weren't physically correct and had to be changed. This was done in the material editor and adjustments were made to the metallic, specular and roughness components of the material while also changing the colour. This gave the effect of the car paint that I was looking for. A rubber texture was also applied to the wheels and the opacity component of the windshield material was also edited. The animation was made in a level sequencer using 4 main cameras. Here you can see all the actors and their key frames. To light the scene, I used a sky sphere and a light source to create physically correct light and shadows. An interactive component visualization was made using OpenGL APIs. The model was exported from Maya using OBJ files. As you can see here, materials have been added to the different components of the model. Using the R and F keys on the keyboard, the components can be moved to show an exploded view of the model. The WASD keys are used to move the camera around the scene, while the Z and X keys are used to move the camera closer to the model or further away. The keyboard arrows are also used to rotate the model. Let me give you a brief rundown of the code. To begin with, I initialize variables that will be used. such as the position of the camera and the position of each individual component. I also then define meshes for each component and also variables for each texture that will be used. Here I begin creating the animation window. Here I load the OBJ files into the meshes I created earlier. In these sections, I begin defining the textures for each component. Textures that I defined earlier are wrapped and then assigned an imported texture file. Information about the texture is then stored and mapped before being linked to the program. This is done for each material. Here I link the vertex and fragment shaders. I then initialize the position of each component. Here in the update method, you can see the definitions of the key presses. I use the keyboard arrows for model rotation, Z and X for camera zoom, WASD for camera position, and R and F to explode and retract the model. Here I set up the light in the scene before moving on to draw the components. Before I draw the model, I retrieve the desired texture and bind it to the component which will be drawn below. I then set the translation and rotations of the component using the associated variable which I previously defined. I then go on to draw the rest of the components using their specific position vector. When I wish to use a new material, I simply retrieve it and bind it just before drawing that new piece. The fragment shader deals with lighting and textures passed to it from the main code. Here you can see I create variables to hold the new textures, which is then returned in this one line at the bottom. Thanks for watching my demonstration.